That's quite nice. And that's pretty much it, apart from the Zen core, which also we kind of knew anyway. It's basically just ever so slightly improving the knowledge we had. And neural net prediction, decoupled branch predictor, 3-level TLB for BP pipe for accelerated instruction prefetch, 2 branches per BTB entry, neural net enabling prediction of 2 branches per cycle, which obviously is going to be really important for multi-threading, 32 entry return stack, and 512 entry indirect target array. Essentially, neural net prediction predicts and learns how code works on a specific application. Now, we did learn from Robert Halleck from AMD that obviously that it's not like it's got 2 gigabytes of storage for this, so eventually code is going to kind of become old and obsolete and be removed, so it's not like it can remember this for like 20 applications at once, but it will remember it for titles that are, applications which are running right now. CPU complex information, so a CCX is 4 cores connected to one level 3 cache, one set of 8 megabytes of level 3 cache. It's made up of 4 slices, and every core can access every cache with the same average latency. So in short, core 1 can access the cache which is associated to core 2, and so on and so on. Now, the really nice thing about this is you can then stack these CCXs. Basically, this is the Lego approach that AMD have been taking for some time now with its new components, especially its GPUs. So it's kind of nice. I could certainly keep going into this, but as I said, a lot of this stuff we've covered previously, so I don't necessarily want to drag too much of the video down with an analysis. If you want me to, by all means, you could ask, and I'll possibly try and throw it into the full Ryzen review. But anyway, let's focus on gaming performance. Now, these are slides which have appeared on the internet. Now, there are a couple of things that immediately spring to mind. First of all, these are at 1440p, and they are testing the 1700 versus the 7700K. First thing you're going to notice is that if you are running Ryzen 7, it seems to work really nicely across DirectX 12. However, DX11 titles, not so well. So in short, if you are running, let's say, Doom on Vulkan, then scaling is really nice, and Ryzen certainly wins. GTA 5, despite the fact that it does scale across multiple cores, typically it works really well with a couple of cores being really fast. And you can start testing yourself by, if you own GTA 5 and you've got a spare few minutes to kill, you can go into BIOS and start disabling or enabling the CPU cores and SMT if you happen to have it on your processor, and you can see that typically GTA 5 does like higher number of threads, yes, but typically more important to GTA 5, quite frankly, is raw clock speed. However, these benchmarks continue, and it does seem that yes, gaming performance of the Ryzen is very impressive overall, but isn't quite up to snuff with the 7700K in DirectX 11 titles. With that all said, an unofficial review has popped up, and this website I'm probably going to butcher the name of. I'm terribly sorry, but it is Sharak Hassar. Probably butchered the name of that, and essentially they've gotten what we believe to be an engineering sample Ryzen CPU. It is running with the B350. The motherboard is an MSI B350 Tomahawk, and the CPU-Z is detecting the RAM running at 2133 MHz. So it's not particularly amazing or anything like that. And they're running a GTX 980. So once again, it's not an amazing GPU. You could certainly go higher than that. I won't go through all of the tests that they've got because that would be unfair and uncool for me to do that. I'll simply link their review in the video description. But they have both synthetic benchmarks and also gaming benchmarks. So what do we learn about this? Well, if you're looking at like AIDA64 extreme CPU hash, then obviously it absolutely decimates the 7700K. For example, Syssoft Sandra 2016, well, yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. 3D Mark 2011, it doesn't quite pip the 7700K, but it's within throwing distance. Firestrike, It does beat out the 7700K and the 5960X, but loses to the 6950X. PC mark. Well, this one's a bit closer. However, the 6700K does slightly win out. You can start seeing a pattern here. Applications which primarily require high clock speed but don't necessarily scale across multiple threads particularly well definitely do favour Intel CPUs. For example, Cinebench R15 CPU benchmark single thread is getting 148, which is not bad, but it doesn't quite win out to 196 of the 7700K or the 179 of the 6700K, and it's actually slightly slower than the 4770K. Multi-thread, however, is 1507, which is considerably higher than even the 5960X. Let's be honest, if you're running Cinebench, you're not exactly going to be like, oh, okay, gee, I'm just going to run it on this one CPU. And the same thing for 7-zip and also Dolphin. Dolphin, it's, well, the slowest. There are some things, however, we need to take into account with this. One, this is only one configuration with only one set of RAM. I would like to see what happens when we start seeing it across multiple review samples. Batman Arkham Origins, well, it's not bad. It's basically, essentially competitive. If you look at the most extreme example, which is 1366 by 768, which basically means absolutely no GPU limitation at all, it's really down just to CPU, then there's not that much separating the two. And if you take it to the extreme, which is 1080p with 4 times NSAA, then it's 91 frames a second versus essentially 89 frames a second. GTA 5, we have another image, which is quite nice to see as a point of comparison. And in this one, it's ever so slightly slower than the 7700K. What does all of this mean? Well, unfortunately, there's just not that much information at the moment to really give us an indication of how the CPU is going to perform, because quite frankly we don't have a large enough sample size. And this is even more important when we start figuring out that we don't know how Ryzen is going to scale across different memory clocks. We don't know how board performance works, if there's going to be any bugs in the BIOS which are affecting performance, and naturally the other thing is RAM timings, you know, what version of the processor are they using. With overclocking, they managed to get to 3,991 megahertz, which did naturally improve performance quite considerably. For example, in the case of Bioshock Infinite, it took the performance up from, and I'm going to be using 768, it took it from 173 all the way up to 180, which isn't massive, but it is enough to be, you know, quite noticeable in games. Cinebench had also really beefed up the performance. Now, I know this video might sound a bit confusing to many of you, because it's like, okay, well, do I still buy Ryzen? My advice to you is the following, and I'm not, you know, advocating one thing or the other, but this is what I would do. If you are looking for a processor specifically only for gaming, I would wait for a little bit. I'm not saying wait, you know, a month. I'm saying wait a couple of days. Wait for more reviews, wait for folks to actually get hold of it and figure out if this is the processor for you. Also, if you're buying for games which are DirectX 12 or Vulkan or what have you, and you're like, okay, I don't mind being a few frames slower, that's fine. Then by all means buy a 1700X or what have you. If you are doing a lot of encoding, if you're doing a lot of virtual machines, running a lot of virtual machines, that type of thing, Ryzen, from the looks of these early preliminary graphs, looks like it's for you. On the other hand, if you are gaming only, and I stress only, a 7700K might be the better option, or stick with your 6700K or whatever. Obviously, we're just going to have to wait and see, and that's kind of the reason I'm bringing this to your attention, because we will be doing our own benchmarks, but even then, there's only like one point of comparison. We do have a 4770K we can compare it with. We've got a, we have a couple of Skylake CPUs we can compare it with. We've got even a 2500K we can compare it with. And obviously we can start overclocking those different systems and all of that jazz. And we've got multiple GPUs we can test it with. But essentially there are only a certain amount of things we can do. So I think it's good we work as a community, but I did want to bring this to your attention. just so that you can be better informed. But with all of that said, hopefully you have enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Remember, like, share, subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. I'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves, and do join me for the Rising coverage over the next couple of days. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.
Subsides. Find something else to fight over. Soon they shall bask in my glory. My magic flows through the temples. Guardians, do not let these mortals approach them.
The spirits whisper.
Retreat is in order.
I hoped someone needed that.
The spirits whisper agreement. spirits whisper. Of course. I grow. Now I see.
Let's defend this fort.
Now I see.
Fort lost. Heroes.
We must not delay. Hesitation. The truth stands. Now I see.
Don't think I'll just let you die.
The spirits whisper agreement.
We ought to attack here.
Of course.
Your enemy has destroyed a keep.
Assist our ally.
Your enemy from your core.
Yes. Of course.
Your core is under attack. The light of the sun grows within the temples. Soon they shall bask in